Today is Saturday. There is obviously not going to be any live trading, but that actually gives me an opportunity to discuss a very important topic, a very important point that normally during the trading day I really cannot discuss. I don't have the time, but I want to address the point of trading with indicators. As you know, in my own trading, I do not use any indicators, but obviously I am aware that the vast majority of our group in Discord uses indicators, and I would like to show you a much more effective way of using whatever indicator you like. When you combine whatever indicators you use with a bias based on the levels that I post and based on the commentary, real life commentary in Zoom. Now, just to touch on that point, only about 1/3 of members here actually attend Zoom. And I understand that you might have full-time jobs or other responsibilities, and that's okay. I just hope it's not because you are not aware that as a member you have access to a Zoom room where first at 8 a.m. Eastern I kind of lay out a preliminary plan for the day for trading the NASDAQ and the S&P, and then I come back between 9 and 9:30 to have a much more concrete plan and actually talk about what we are looking to do when the US session opens. So I just wanted to start the video with that, and let's get to it. So if you just came across this channel and you're wondering what this is all about, well, every evening, sometime after Globex opens, after 6 p.m. Eastern, I post buy and sell levels for 7 instruments. So these levels are good for Globex and the following day's US session open. Then we have an indicator coded by one of our members, and all it does is it takes the levels that I post and plots them on your chart. So a buy level, a sell level, and a midpoint. And then the approach is very straightforward. Above the midpoint, you are bullish for price to reach the buy level, as this is crude, as it does here, for example. And below the midpoint, you are more bearish and you're looking for price to hit the sell level, as the Russell does over here. Now in Zoom, we basically trade the NASDAQ and the S&P. So we can use the NASDAQ as an example. I think the vast majority of the traders in the group trade the NASDAQ, and some do trade the S&P. But let's talk about the NASDAQ. So as we were approaching, so my first Zoom meeting is at 8 a.m. But as we are approaching the open at 9:30 Eastern, as you can see, price was actually slightly below the midpoint on the NASDAQ. But I said clearly in Zoom, even though price currently is below, I am actually looking for long trades. I was expecting a move higher both in the S&P and the NASDAQ. I'm not going to go into here why. I explained it in our Zoom meeting, but suffice to say, I was looking for long, and I strongly advised our members to look for long trades. So now let's pick an indicator and see how we can use a particular indicator for the purpose of actually entering a trade, right? Because it's one thing to say, well, look for longs. Okay, that's very nice, but okay, how do I find a long? And there are so many ways. Again, I am not necessarily recommending any kind of indicator or setup. Most traders already have something they use, and if you have something you use, do not change it. Do not. Just stick with what you're doing. I'm just going to show an example. So this is the NASDAQ, and this is Cosmic Z by Ninzaco. The reason I picked this one is because I just did a webinar for Ninzaco featuring this indicator. Again, I'm not saying you should go out and buy it. It's just an example that I'm going to use. So I was bullish, as I said, even though price was slightly below the midpoint. I was saying look for longs. So this one is a bit before the open, so let's skip this one, but I just want to show you. So you're looking for long trades. You're not if there is a short trade that pops, I'm saying ignore it, look for long trades. Here is a long. Right here, Cosmic Z identifies a long, and there you go. As always, I recommend you take, if you're trading one E-mini, just go for the $100 per contract. That is my recommendation. Most people do not take this recommendation because they want more, and it's fine. But if you're looking for 100, well, you definitely have it. As I always also recommend, I mean, you might have 5 points here, I'm not sure, but for me, it's really the first trade, the first signal in a particular direction that I like to take. So, then there was a retracement, and there was no short signal here, but there was definitely a kind of a bearish scenario here as far as the indicator goes. And I say, when this happens, and I say, look for long trades, even if there was a short signal here, all things being equal, if the market is strong, you want to look for longs. You want to buy strength and you want to sell weakness. So even if there was a short signal here, I would ignore it, and there was another long. So the long I would take first signal in a particular direction. I was looking for longs, and there you go. So that's example with the NASDAQ on Friday. I want to talk about again the NASDAQ, but on Thursday, because Thursday was somewhat interesting. Now, on Thursday, as the US session was getting ready to open, as you can see, we are hitting a sell level. So, kind of a quick review again, below the midpoint, we are looking short for price to arrive at a sell level. This area is pulling the price down as long as it's below this midpoint. But by the time the US session was ready to open, we hit this 465, and 465 for me was just a super important price. And what I said in Zoom was, yes, we are hitting a sell level, but if this 465 holds, we actually are going to move higher. First destination was 490 and then above 500. So here is a situation where you would think, but we're hitting a sell level, we're below the midpoint, shouldn't we be looking for short setups? Normally the answer is yes, but because of the kind of price 465 was, I actually was advising to look for the long side. I was advising traders to look for long setups, whatever they use for a setup. So now again, let's take a look at the indicator and see what could have been done using that indicator on the long side. So here is the open. You can see the indicator is showing bearish behavior. And actually we have short trades here. And that's when, again, I kind of go to the point, indicators on their own, by themselves, cannot possibly understand larger picture, what is truly going on. I advise to stay away from shorts as long as 465 held, to go at least 25 to 30 points higher at the very least. So if one was trading, again, this indicator, and it doesn't have to be this particular indicator, but here is avoiding a short. There was no long here. Here is the long. So if I was using Cosmic Z, as let's say this indicator is my go-to indicator, I am in Zoom, and so I am aware that I should try and find a long setup. Here it is. Here is the long. Here is my $100. Again, the first one is always the best. Second one is a maybe. Third one I would definitely stay away from. But kind of the idea that I'm looking for long setups to try and give me my daily goal, which, as I always say again, is $100 per contract per mini, so 5 NASDAQ points. So it's just a way, because I'm asked that often. I'm using such and such indicator. When I hear you say find a long or a short setup, how do I do it? That's one way of doing it. Listen to what I say, look at the levels, and then have some kind of a bias when you are trading with your indicator, because this bias is going to give you a greater probability of success. Before we go, by the way, to look at some other instruments and see how you can use indicators with those other instruments, I just want to point something out. The importance of this 465 that I just mentioned. So this was Thursday. I don't know if you noticed what price NASDAQ closed at the following day on Friday. Here is when NASDAQ closed yesterday, Friday, 465. So uh, there are no coincidences here. It's just that the levels I give you are important. They're important to the market, and this is just a very clear illustration. And maybe you understand why that 465 was so important to me. And even though it was a sell level, I was actually looking to buy it for a move higher. Anyway, let's take a look at crude. So not too many people trade crude, but again, it's just an example. So again, these are the levels that were posted on Thursday night for Friday. So here's Friday. Here is crude, obviously above the midpoint, looking to target the buy level and beyond. So how could we use whatever indicator we have in this case? So again, this is the same exact indicator. It's bullish as well, so there was no issue here. And let's see, the signal doesn't arrive until like over an hour after the crude opens, but there was a signal. You were looking for a long, and if you were patient, this was the signal. So again, it's kind of working together with the levels and the indicator. You have your indicator, you like your indicator, but maybe it's not very effective for you. Consider this. That's just a great way of using whatever indicator you have to make this indicator more effective. Now, I picked gold next because gold was actually very interesting if you were looking to trade it with an indicator, at least the one I chose. So you can see that gold kind of stays below the midpoint and even below the sell level for quite a bit, from after the news announcement at 8:30 until like around 9:20. So until 9:20, price is below the midpoint, which means on your indicator you are looking for shorts. But take a look at this now. There are no short signals, and not only that, the indicator actually goes bullish. So now we have this conflict between price being below the midpoint and the indicator being bullish. So yeah, you would not take any long trades at this point because you don't know what's going to happen in the future. You don't know if price is going to turn around, right? Because price is below the midpoint. You don't know if it's going to turn around, kind of like it does here, and start going lower again instead of turning around and going up above the midpoint. So after 920, that's when price is going above the midpoint, and now I can start looking for long trades. So now I would ignore, after this point, I would ignore short trades unless what? Unless price again goes below the midpoint. I'm looking for longs now after 920. Looking for longs, no signal. Here it is. All right, so again, patience sometimes is required, but the point is, even though price kind of went below and above the midpoint, we were concentrating on where our signals, and that kind of gives us, I guess you can call it an additional confirmation. It just means that again, whatever indicator you use, in this case, Cosmic Z is a pretty good indicator. It just improves the effectiveness of the indicator when you are trading with the market, as opposed to trying to fight it. If the market is, kind of below the midpoint and it's weaker and you're looking for long trades, yes, a long trade could work out. It's just that the probability is slightly less unless there are other circumstances, as we've seen with the NASDAQ. But that's when I say specifically in Zoom that we have a specific situation where, even though we are below the midpoint, actually that traction is toward the upside and to look for long trade. So this is it, and I hope it helped. If you have any questions, you can post them right in Discord, or you can email me. And if you want me to cover other topics that are related to trading, obviously, specifically to maybe how to trade the levels using whatever it is that you have. Again, in my own trading, I do not use any indicators, but obviously most traders do, and this video was designed to help make your indicators more effective. That's all for today, and thank you.